Hello, this is my patch 6.11 tier list for Valorant. It's going to be about ranked. We're not going to be looking at competitive at all. So it's all about ranked. First things first is Breach in B. So the reason why Breach is B is because he can't really get his own info. So don't want him to be in like the SI tier. And he doesn't particularly excel at being an initiator a huge amount. He's pretty good, but he's not great. So he's pretty average when it goes to initiator, or like pretty like it's actually towards the bottom. He's like, if an initiator is weaker than Breach, then they're probably really weak, right? That's how I see Breach. Brimstone is either B or A. I think he's B tier. So he's also like pretty standard for an agent. Like if a controller's worse than Brimstone, then there's problems. But generally he's like really easy to play, and you don't even need that much to learn on him as well. There's just lineups with your molly, and that's kind of it, and then where to place your ult. That stuff is really easy. And in general, like I don't think he needs to be any higher because he is like basic but good, and that's what it should be. Cypher we have on B tier as well. So problem with Cypher is he does get his own info, but he doesn't really have any tools to take base unless you're not like if you're not confident, you're not going to get many frags, and that makes it really hard for me to push him up because he doesn't really have anything to help him unless he does trap plays really well. But the problem with Cypher as well is that he needs to kind of choose to trap play, or he chooses to play like information type and lurk and things like that. And he can't really do both at once very easily. Obviously you can lurk into a trap play and things like that, right? But it's really, really hard to do that. So I'm putting him in B. He does need some buffs as well, ideally. Probably a roof on his cage, especially because of Gekko as well. That's also a big part of the reason why I think he needs a roof on his cage, because Gekko exists now. S tier for Jett. So Jett is undeniably one of the best agents in the game for ranked. Yeah, dash makes it super safe. Knives are good. Give you like a free gun on the eco, so maybe you can like carry your team on that eco round with knives. You can operator, which is really, really important to have on a ranked team, especially because lots of people won't respect the op. Updraft helps you get to elevated positions. You can scale with updraft, dash, and smokes. Smokes help you get 1v1s. Brilliant agent for ranked. A for Omen. So very actually similar to Jett in a lot of ways, or some ways, where he can smoke things for. Well, he has to kind of smoke for his team most of the time, but he can smoke for himself. He can TP into sight. Obviously, it's slower than dash. He can get to elevation on defense, play there. He can do some really, really strong smokes to sit in and play like Judge or something. Paranoia is generally quite strong on attack or on defense, because you can fully stop pushes if they're through the like main choke points. Unless they split on you, then your paranoia is going to get a lot of value. Phoenix, I put Phoenix in A tier. So Phoenix is actually pretty strong in ranked because he just has really strong flashes. He kind of does it all, and it kind of helps in ranked to be able to do a lot of different things. The one thing he does suck at is getting his own information, but he's really, really strong at taking fights when he can. So when he knows when someone's there, he's really, really strong at taking that fight. And that's the reason why he's A tier. His ult is also very, very strong. You can abuse getting orbs early on like certain positions, because the enemy team might not pick up on you taking those orbs. And then you'll get your ult constantly throughout the half. Raze is S tier as well. So Raze is also really, really strong. She has like a similar scaling to Jett, where she can like dash into sight fairly easily with satchels, and she can cut off she can cut off crossfires. She can split up the defenders in a way that makes it really, really hard for the enemy team to deal with you. And on top of that, you have a lot of area denial with nade. You can get people out of corners very easily with your nade and your ult. And honestly, sometimes just a threat of your ult is enough to win rounds. And also, Boombot gives you a lot of information that means you can simply just like get your own info, and then you can use that info to get kills. Like, she's really, really strong in that way. So she's one of the strongest agents in rank 2. And then we have Sage. So Sage is debatable for me. She's between like the bottom of A or top of B. But the reason why I've made a top of A is because of the ammo changes. And in general, I think she's just better since the heal update as well. So heal's generally a bit stronger in ranked than it is in competitive, because there's less headshots in ranked than there is in competitive. But on the flip side, there's you can be more coordinated with positioning. So res tends to get more value in competitive, but in ranked it tends to get less value because you won't be able. There'll be some times where your teammates just won't position particularly well, and the Sage can't really res you. So, or like, yeah, the res just won't go through because the all the dead bodies are in bad places, right? So she's in A tier, and she can't really get her own info. She's really good at controlling space, though, so she's pretty decent in ranked for that reason. It's kind of similar to Cypher in that sense, you know, Sentinels, being able to control space. Obviously, she has to be a lot more active in that space. She can't just like leave traps there and cam there or something. She has to be walling and slowing and actually having presence in that space, which makes her a bit worse, but a bit better in some ways too. Because that utility tends to be a bit more oppressive and has a lot more uses than just a trip. Then we have Sova. Sova is A tier. He's really close to S tier probably. Actually, he's probably at the top of A. Along with like, actually, it's probably the 4 initiators. So just a spoiler alert. All the 4, I won't put them there now, but all the 4 initiators, I think 4 initiators are going to be at the front here, and they're really, really close to S. Actually, I would say I might even push one into S. Actually, I might push Sova into S. Yeah, I'm going to push Sova into S actually. So the reason for this is that he can get his own info. He has two abilities to do it, which isn't great. But on the bright side, he has a lot of like those 2 pieces of util are some of the most insane pieces of util to check corners and get people out of places, right? And if you've got good lineups, then you can basically say to your team like, you don't have to check anything here because I've got every dart checks everything, you know, and that's really, really strong to have, right? You don't have to tell like your teammates don't have to check things. They probably still will anyway, to be honest, but at least like you have that like security. And the drone also gives the same thing, where the drone is a lot more noticeable for the teammates, so teammates are going to be like, we've droned this so I don't have to check close, right? So the drone will be able to check close and things like that. And on top of that as well, he also has a lot of threat, so he can do shock dart lineups to start rounds and one on defense to like catch some kills potentially or do a lot of damage. He can also do post plant stuff as well, where he threatens the bomb quite heavily when he's got ult, so it makes it really hard for, like, as long as you like are alive at the end of the round, you can like end that round pretty comfortably potentially, like quite a lot of the time, as Sova with ult especially. We got Viper, so Viper is B tier for me. So the reason why, so if this was a competitive tier list, I actually would bump her up slightly. The reason being is because I think a lot more of Viper is unlocked in competitive, despite her being nerfed recently. But I think in ranked, she's a lot less unlocked to do what she wants to do. But I do also think as well that she did get kind of nerfed by the recent changes in ranked, because when she gets depleted fuel, instead of being 5 seconds, it's 7.5 seconds. So that means that the 7.5 second window where you can punish the Viper, and sometimes, I mean, most of the time people don't even react to this, even in like M2, M3 lobbies, by the way, they don't react to this. They don't actually understand that that Viper's punishable in that situation. But now it might change because of this change. We might actually see like people start to eventually adapt to it, because they might try it and it might start working more, and then they might try, and then it might be like a bit more noticeable when she's getting punished when she runs out of fuel or mismanages her fuel. So we got Reyna in C, and she's actually alone in C, and also there's no D, I don't think. So why is Reyna sucking ranked? Put it this way, right? If I was doing a competitive or ranked tier list, like, and ranked tier list combined, I just realized my cam is so low. If I was doing a tier list of competitive and ranked, then it would be here. She'd be here 100%. Well, because she's C now for just ranked, and the reason why I think she's one of the worst agents in the game is because if you're say her logic doesn't really make sense, right? So what I mean is by that is, if you're the best player, you can pick Reyna, right? But on the flip side, if you're the best player, why would you limit yourself by picking Reyna? Because yeah, if you're better mechanically, great, but if you're the better player, then surely you should be like, well, maybe I should pick something that I can have a lot more value on, and I don't have to like limit myself to these risky plays. Why would I want to increase the risk? I mean, not having the value from my agent, when I could just pick something that had. If I'm the better player, why would I increase the risk? You know what I mean? So that's why I don't particularly like Reyna. I don't think it logically makes sense to play her. But at the same time, there are players that are mechanically insane that they can make Reyna work. But I still don't see her being particularly viable anytime soon with this kit. In ranked or in competitive. Whenever I get a Reyna on my team in ranked, I wish they would just pick Jett, especially if I've got a solo Reyna. if I've got like Reyna Raze, then I'm a bit more okay with it. If I've got Reyna Jett, I'm a lot more okay with it, because if you want a second duelist, I would prefer Raze, but I don't mind Jett. I don't mind Reyna that much. But it's just like when she's the only one, she has no scaling at all. Like she can't get into sites herself. She has to like just walk onto site like everyone else. It makes it really, really bad as like a sort of duelist. You have to pair her with like a duelist that's gonna no duelist initiator's probably gonna do the same thing like KO, or something like that, right? I mean, in that situation anyway. But yeah, she kind of becomes like a worse version of KO, and why would you want that? Because KO is insane, and Reyna isn't. So Killjoy next. So Killjoy is also B tier, similar to Cypher, and just similar to Cypher really. She tends to not have to pick between having a kill setup and like a information based type setup. She can kind of do both at the same time, because she doesn't have to be active in the trap setup. So what Cypher has to do is he has to actually shoot the people in the trap. But Killjoy doesn't always have to do that. She can use her swarms, nano swarms, to actually get the kills or to deal a lot of damage, which makes her trap players a lot stronger, because she doesn't actually have to be active in that play. She can do something else at the same time. So she is a bit stronger than Cypher in that sense. But she does have her own pitfalls with like the range on her stuff. So it makes Cypher a bit more aggressive, and think in like the attack side especially, where Cypher doesn't have to babysit his traps as much, while Killjoy has to stay very, very close, or stay pretty close. Next one is Skye. So Skye is like probably one of the best agents in the game currently, in the current perspective of things. But I also think the problem that she faces is the fact that she has a really useless and misaligned ability, which is regrowth. So the problem with Skye, she's really, really good. Well, actually, I'll go over the positive first, which are she's really good in the current meta with all these walls, and that makes her really, really strong, because she has 3 tools, 3 abilities, or technically 4 if you counter ult, but I won't counter ult. But 3 abilities, 2 birds and 1 dog, to check these smokes and check all these walls, right? And these walls are going to make segments where the dog is going to be really, really valuable, where the bird is going to be really, really valuable to get the info in those places. And it's going to be better than Sova in a lot of cases, in the current meta anyway. When you ever against double smokes, right? Which isn't always. In fact, if anything, I would say it's a rarity in ranked that you're against it. So it's one of the reasons why I put Sova a bit higher. In competitive, I would probably put Sova below Skye, but still keep him in A, and keep Skye in A as well. But I think generally she suffers from having regrowth. So regrowth is the problem, because it kind of is misaligned. What I mean by that is that healing doesn't really feel like a very initiator type ability, right? What initiators want is they want to impact the fight initially, or like at the start of the fight, or they want to impact it in the middle of the fight, or towards the end of the fight, right? The problem is that they don't want to be impacting it after the fight. So that's what controllers and sentinels are good at. They like impacting fights after they've happened, and to increase your advantage. So what I mean by that even more is like controllers will smoke angles off, like smoke angles off, to allow you to reset in good positions, or sentinels will be able to set up traps in other parts of the map. So then when you win a fight, you can actually rotate to that safe part of the map, because you know the trap's there and you know that part is safe. That's like how sentinels and controllers like to work. They like to reset the fights. But initiators want to be impacting the fight. And heal doesn't impact the fight. It's like a very reset type tool, where it's like reset my teammates' health bars a bit, similar to Sage. And the problem is with that is that it just sucks on an initiator to have that ability. So hopefully they get rid of it soon and they replace it with something a bit more useful. But I can't see that happening, because what they've done is they've made regrowth really, really useless in exchange for the dog and the birds being really, really strong. So unless that drastically changes, because they would have to nerf those 2 again, and they've already been nerfed. They would have to nerf those and then give her another ability on regrowth, and then that would probably just be a balancing nightmare. So probably won't happen, but I do think like she was a bit misdesigned in that way. But what do I know? I guess Yoru. So Yoru is B tier again. So he's like the bottom of B tier. He's very close to C tier for me. And the reason why he's not C tier, if this was competitive, it would be C tier. Because it's ranked, it's B tier. The reason being is because he's a lot harder to play at higher ranks, and when players are more aware of like what he can do, it becomes a lot harder to play Yoru. And he's almost weird in a way, because he's got so many ways to mix up the opponent and to trick the opponent that it becomes kind of one-dimensional, where he feels like he's basically always trying to trick you. And the best Yorus are the ones that can tell this, can like understand this line and make it so like they're not always trying to trick you, and that they will sometimes just play completely standard. That's like one of the biggest things about normal, like good Yoru players, is that they understand when they just need to play normal and when they can actually like do these plays, right? And that's like one of the biggest problems with Yoru as well in general, is that his kit is like super difficult in general to play, really really high skill floor, and honestly a pretty high skill ceiling as well. So he does have a lot of problems for like competitive as well, in that he does actually miss out on like the setup part of him as well. Next one is Astra. So Astra is in B tier as well. So I was thinking about putting a C tier. She's also towards the bottom of B tier. The reason being is because I would never recommend to anyone under Immortal play Astra, because it requires you to know some certain things, how to lurk on a controller, how to communicate with your team correctly about where to put stars and like what you're going to do with those stars. And also it requires the teammates to have some sort of idea of how that Astra operates as well. And below Immortal that won't happen. Honestly, in Immortal sometimes it doesn't happen, so honestly just don't play it until decently high rank. KO is S tier for me as well. Actually, no, he's not. Sorry, he's A tier. So this, if this was competitive, he'd be S. Is a ranked tier list is A. The reason why there's this disparity here is because a lot of the time teammates don't react to his play very easily, right? For some reason people don't understand that silence means that they literally are like can't use util, so you can't get flashed, you can't get mollied off if you're not already mollied, things like that, right? People don't understand that for some reason and they don't react to him. But on top of that as well is that he does lack some things. So he doesn't have the most versatile flash, he doesn't have any true reveal, and in general he only has one ability that actually gets info. So it is not the best. He does have molly to compensate, which is pretty good, to be fair, to like control space and help like anti-flood and stuff like that, right? But he is generally strong. He just sucks on the getting his own info part, which is why he's not S. And we got Chamber, who I actually put at S. So he got new changes. Before this, by the way, I would have put him here anyway. I actually think a lot of people overreacted to his changes, and I think now people are going to underreact to these buffs. I think in general, he is still one of the strongest agents in the game. He can still take the same free fight he did at the start of every round before, and he can still do that now. And for some reason, people just sleep on him. The only thing that really makes him not that great is the range on his trap. Without the range of if his range on the trap was just even a tiny bit bigger than it is after the buff, he would probably be the most played agent in competitive, in ranked, sorry, and potentially like burst into competitive really, really easily. But now I think he's going to get the slow burn back into competitive, and he might end up being in a balanced state in competitive. But in ranked, he's always going to be towards the S tier for me, because I think he's just a cheat to economy. He's a cheat to the first fight every round, and that's way too valuable in competitive. Sorry, in ranked. Neon is also towards the bottom of B tier for me. Problem is that she has pretty useless abilities sometimes. Like her slide can be really useless. Her stun sometimes is very awkward to line up in certain areas. You need the right maps. And she also really, really struggles in like getting onto site sometimes, because she is fully horizontal. She can't go like vertical, right, like Raze or Jett can. So she really struggles like that. Her ult isn't too bad. Once again, there's one of those abilities that can like cheat economy. Pretty decent overall. Maybe she's not actually as close to bottom as B as I first thought. She is also pretty fast at rotating on defense as well, which can be really important in competitive, because you want to be chasing fights a lot as duelist. We got Fade next. So Fade is also towards the top of A. She's honestly just been slept on a bit because the double controller meta in competitive, she isn't played as much, and therefore because she's not played as much in competitive, she doesn't really get the trickle down into ranked. So I think overall she's really, really strong. She has the same kind of problem as Sova, where the reveal isn't quite as valuable as like the Skye flashes and dog. Generally her horn is a bit less valuable than recon dart. But her prowlers are really, really strong in this meta. She's actually a bit stronger than Sova in this meta right now. But the reason why, competitive meta right now. But in ranked, I think she's about this. Because you're going to be against one smoke, right? And Sova gets more value with dart when there's one smoke. when there's one smoker. At least on the enemy team. Maybe on your team you can like do some communication stuff, but that's really hard to do. Not really a rank thing. So Harbor is next. And Harbor goes in the B tier. Sorry, I was going to put him in A tier. So A tier he goes here for competitive, but in ranked I'm going to put him towards like the middle of the pack in B. So the reason why he's here is because he has pretty good abilities. Problem is like, first of all, teams don't really know how to play with the Cove very well, and I think general like Harbor players don't really know how to play the Cove particularly well. But in general, like the Cove isn't the strongest ability, and neither is his wall, but his cascade is really strong, and I think people have realized that now. So that's the reason why he's like not towards the bottom. But he is pretty not great in ranked because generally you're going to be playing solo controller, and that means in a lot of maps you basically can't play Harbor, because especially things like maps like Haven, they're just way too awkward for his walls, and you just don't get the value you want. And then finally, we're on to Gekko. So we're gonna put Gekko in B tier towards the bottom. So actually we're gonna put him here-ish. So the reason why he's here, actually we're gonna put Astra a bit higher. Actually no, we're not gonna put Astra higher. We're gonna just leave it like this. It doesn't really matter the order too much anyway. Every agent is pretty close in general anyway, to be honest, in terms of power level. So Gekko is pretty decent. He has the dog, but it's his ult, so it's not the greatest for the competitive meta, but in the rank meta it's fine. He's just going to take some getting used to and some learning as well. I think people are still definitely learning on him, and therefore I am as well, so maybe I don't have the greatest idea of the power level of Gekko. But generally you have to retake his orbs, and that's where his main problem is in ranked, is that teammates won't help you very much retake his orbs when he needs to retake, because he can get like a lot of abilities in a round, which would actually sound pretty good, but the problem is that he needs to get those orbs back, and teammates will help you. His wingman though is like really strong in ranked, because you can essentially cheat fights where what a 2v2 would normally could be a 3v2, because you can have your gun out while planting, or like a post plant, right? Usually it's like maybe a 1v2 because someone has to like stick the fuse or something, or tap the fuse or something, right? But you can have the wingman do it, and then you can have two guns like alive or like active in the 2v2, right? Instead of just one gun when one person defuses, right? He's also got some good qualities where like he can kind of combine well with Harbor in the current meta, so that's nice for him as well. That's it for the video. I hope you enjoy watching. This is just like my perspective on ranked right now. Obviously things are going to be changing a lot, especially as I learn like some of the new parts of the patch. With like how Viper's going to shape up and how Chamber is, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on Chamber. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.